All right, here's a tough one. How do you define reality?
Whoa, Dave, how do I define reality? Now, first of all, that is probably the most profound question that I suggest 8 billion other people ask themselves, because that is the single most question that we should all ask ourselves. Now, I'll give you my take on it. And it is a personal take. It is the result of over 60 years of pondering this question and over 45 years of actually hard physics science to explore this to some extent. Let me point out a fact to you. Everybody who thinks they know what atoms are, I have to remind them that nobody has ever seen an atom and never ever will see an atom, because the atoms are just too darn small. What we have is we have a model of an atom. In our case, a particle model. So we believe that atoms are like little billiard balls, and then you can hit one billiard ball with the other and it bounces off, and it looks just like on a billiard table, only much, much smaller on an atomic scale. Now, if you have a particle model, then you can explain a lot of things, but occasionally you run into trouble. I'll give you an example. You're driving on the highway and you're the passenger, and you are slowly overtaking a guy next to you, and you now start to stare at the guy driving next to you that you're about to overtake. The moment you're on his height, chances are that he will turn involuntarily for no good reason, not knowing why, and then continue driving. So what you did there was you did something that cannot be explained in the reality of the particle model, of the atomistic model that we worshipped at least for 150 years. However, if you consider for just one moment a wave model of the atomic world, meaning there are no atoms, just like the boy in the Matrix says, who was bending the spoon, and Neo was looking at it and he said, there is no spoon. So let's envision this for a moment. There is no atom. The only thing that there is are vibrational states of, let's say, the ether that we all know doesn't exist. But let's say for a moment it does exist. And an atom is a vibrational state of the ether of the standing wave pattern, meaning from the distance, it looks like the wave crests appear stationary. And if you wiggle a little bit on the face, then all of a sudden they start to move. And you can actually move them in such a way that they appear to be coming together and then bouncing off like billiard balls, except they're not billiard balls, they're just vibrational states. And what you see is the movement of the wave crests. So let's say for a moment we accept the wave model as the basis of reality. Then you have something completely different from the particle model. Because if you have two particles apart, the only way that they can communicate through exchange of energy, for example, is by having an exchange particle in between, or they actually touch each other. But with the wave model, it's completely different. A wave crest has no beginning and no end. Yes, the crest is high, but then it wiggles into negative infinity, and on the other side into positive infinity. There's no beginning and no end. So we have a wave pattern, like for example in a holographic plate, and you twiddle here, and everywhere else, this twiddle is potentially being perceived. I say potentially, because the other thing that you have to bring into this reality is the so-called resonance effect. Just like you literally tune into an FM station, anybody who still remembers FM, you have to tune into that particular station, maybe your favorite hard rock station, whereas right next to it, maybe a Mexican station that you may like or may not like. So you have to tune into that particular frequency. And the very same thing is the same. If you drive and you look at the guy next to you, you are actually twiddling a certain frequency, and you are getting in tune with the driver in the other car. And the moment you pass him, now you are in tune and the guy looks over without knowing why. So, now, my answer to your question is, what is reality? I submit that if we go with the wave model, we go a lot further than if we stick with the particle model.